Hey SEOs and content marketers, say goodbye to crazy spreadsheet mashups and experience unprecedented connectivity between your SEO planning and reporting data. Introducing Audience Key, technology for keyword mapping, content brief automation, and rank tracking that form an SEO strategy system providing unparalleled feedback loops between planning, reporting, and optimization activities. Put your time and energy into strategy, not data upkeep. Visit audiencekey.com and apply for a free trial today. Hey everyone, welcome to Webcology here on WMR.FM. It's the 21st of August, 2025. This is Jim Hedger from brandlabs.us and Christine Schackinger from Sites Without Walls. Hey Christine, how you doing?
Hey everybody, I'm good. It's almost the end of our hot summer. We're going into our regular summer, which means we can go outside. It's not 110, 115 degrees. So
it's almost the end of summer in the northern part of North America, and it's about to get awfully cold. I always get sad at this time of year. It's the days are getting visibly shorter, and the days are actually, at least here in Toronto, getting acutely cooler. It's no longer spanking hot where you can't go outside as it has been for the last few weeks, and now it's, kind of pleasant to go outside, but that only means one thing. Christmas is coming, and it's time to get your technical SEO up to date.
right.
That's what that means. And it also means that it's going to be awfully cold outside really, really, really soon.
Yeah, it gets so cold here, I might have to change out of my sandals to shoes
Well,
in December.
and it gets so cold for a lot of us that it's
Oh yeah, you get cold.
literally
cold.
existentially terrifying.
Yes, I've lived in that kind.
Okay, before we go any further, a big shout out to Audience Key and Wix Studio, our sponsors. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. And also, shout out to Darren and Brandy and to Ricky and Brasco and to everybody who makes the show possible, including the listeners. If at all possible, like and follow yourselves, and while doing so, do the same thing with the show. WordPress Contact Form 7. Everybody uses WordPress Contact Form 7. Like every website I've worked on has some version of WordPress Contact Form 7. And apparently the redirection plugin vulnerability hits 300,000 sites. I've worked on at least 300,000 sites in my career, it feels like. And all of them use Platform 7, but I haven't worked on every website in the world, so I think a lot more than 300,000 sites.
Yeah, it seems like it would be. The vulnerability is rated at an 8.8 out of 10 on the CVSS severity scale. That is not CVS. What it does is it allows one, for it to redirect, but also to for an unauthenticated, I cannot speak, attacker to delete arbitrary files on your server, and it can do remote code execution by removing your config file. There is an update available, and if you have not updated when you hear this show or my voice, make sure you go do it right away, because this is a really bad one.
Yeah, so actually the way to solve your exposure to the vulnerability, simply update.
Yeah, it's patched. You just have to get the new one. And also, it's always advisable if you have a service like WP Engine where they automatically update plugins for you to turn that service on.
Okay, if you wanted to build Google Trends into the cool new tool that you're building, you're probably not going to be able to. The Google Trends API is, it's not going to be released ready. It's not going to be ready for prime time anytime soon.
I know, they had our hopes up. We thought this was coming, and now it's like, nah, not really. I mean, it is coming. It's going to be tested, but it's definitely not in the release it to the public stage. So you may get lucky and be in one of the tests, but other than that, it's not going to happen for us for a while. John Mueller said the initial pilot is going to be quite small. The goal is to expand it over time. Lots of different kinds of people and organizations use trends, so I wouldn't expect this to be a big SEO event. Meaning they're going to do it across the board, not just SEO.
Okay, so trends.google.com, still there, still open, still usable. Go use it not, abuse it, beat the heck out of it, use it as frequently as you can. It's an actually really cool resource. It's just not going to be
API ready.
It's not interoperable yet.
Right, exactly.
Okay, we're about to do, and you're going to hear in the next week, you've probably already started hearing about fears of a tech stock meltdown, another I don't know. I don't even remember how to phrase exactly what this is like, but when the meltdown happens, it really, really, really sucks. That may or may not be happening. People are really worried about a meltdown coming, given that we've lived through a couple of them in the tech sector. I think I've lived through 2 major meltdowns in my career, perhaps 3. Sorry, Christine?
Oh, I was just going to say, so I've heard people talk for a few months. I follow all these leaders in the industry on LinkedIn about the potential of one next year. This just kind of came out of the blue that right now tech stocks are weakening based on the issues with the AI, like OpenAI is having difficulties with AI compute. It doesn't have enough compute power. It's always on the edge of not having enough to fulfill its users. I always say this wrong. It's Palantir, right? Palantir stock.
Palantir.
It is down 20% already, may fall another 74% because its AI integrations aren't really paying off. The people that invest in these stocks think that this one is way overvalued. One investor said it's the highest, it's the largest one in its portfolio, and they don't understand why it is that. People don't understand why it's valued at what it's valued. So it's not really, it's saying it's going to do this thing with the AI, but the AI has not followed through. So even though they made more money last quarter than they were expected to, which usually is good for stock, it is not good for Palantir. And then we have
a quick note before going any further. We do not in any way whatsoever. Christine is talking about investors' reactions and is not in any way giving financial advice.
No. We're just reporting what's being said. Yeah, 100%.
It's important.
I'm not a financial advisor.
We don't know squat about this stuff, or we would be rich ourselves.
Exactly.
given the positions we have in the stock world. So
So then we have Sam Altman, who, interestingly enough, since this seems a little self-serving, says that there's an AI bubble forming as the spending surges. And many are starting to fear that there may be one because DeepSeek released another competitive reasoning model. We're talking a little about DeepSeek in a little bit. And then there's a general issue with businesses with Gen AI FOMO have spurred them to spend about $40 billion on AI integrations, but only 5% really use them and get much out of them. So a lot of businesses spent a lot of money and basically just burned it because they're not really doing much with it, or it's not helpful for them. So there's a lot of indicators that they thought this was going to happen next year. It might be starting to happen now because U.S. tech stocks stumbled in AI trade this week as well. So
I suspect there's a number of things pointing to an overall market correction. Might be the wrong word, but I normally say don't ever bet against the United States or against American businesses, but this is not a time I would be betting on America or American businesses, just given the overall global business climate and the tortoise-like or turtle-like ostrich-like behavior of what was the American Republic. But if we start looking at these things, I mean, there's a whole bunch all at once. If we start looking at these things one by one, Palantir is software that is sort of like software that ties together every piece of data acquisition you possibly have about individuals, about corporations, about markets, anything that could have data collected, be it video, facial recognition. I mean, just the whole gamut of whatever you might consider data. Palantir's mission, what it wants to do, is gather that all together and give some sort of competitive, useful, actionable output, which often tends to be used by more authoritarian governments than corporate interests, which is probably Palantir's biggest problem, because it was making a bet on large corporations using it. But Palantir's, I think, biggest problem isn't it itself; it's that many of its component pieces are being threatened. If people think there's an AI meltdown coming, a whole bunch of the data gathering devices that Palantir uses, or that would be operable with Palantir, are going to suffer, and overall that could make it suffer.
Also, there's just the limitations of these systems right now, because we know Facebook is going to buy 3 nuclear reactors last night. I think.
And again, that's the AI stuff. That's not Palantir exactly. Palantir is just
right, but it's their AI stuff that's not producing for them. This is the big
and that's another thing. Palantir has invested a huge amount in AI doing the corporate and the reports, coming up, taking all the data, smashing it together, and creating reports out of it. And that takes a lot of energy and electricity, and it's very expensive. And so but it doesn't mean that analysts, like government analysts, especially in more repressive states, it doesn't mean that ICE isn't using that data to learn a lot about people.
Overall, as an industry, they're just coming up against the costs and the failure for the models to really advance greatly between models, and not becoming AGI, and issues with hallucinations, and et cetera, et cetera. The investors are getting nervous because we're going into, this is the beginning of year 4.
They're indeed, and they're coming up against how to say this, technologies have limitations. I remember the very beginning of the internet. I remember when broadband internet went to Canadian living rooms. A couple years later, it went through American living rooms. And it changed how business was done, but there was so many stumbles and so many screw-ups along the way. And we're at the stumbles and screw-up stage in AI development. We will learn what is supposed to be done with these models, and I think a lot of people are learning the hard way what couldn't be done with those models. But hype does that. Somebody's standing on the street corner selling magic beans that is going to change everything. And in some cases, if you use them right, they will change everything. And most people won't use them right. But the Sam Altman thing is the one that I love. This is the story that made me laugh the hardest this week.
Yeah.
So Sam Altman is now telling people how terrified he is. Sam Altman is like the Sue Collins of CEOs in the AI world. So he's like how terrified he is about the stock meltdown that's coming, or the big bubble that's coming around AI, as he's standing there with a pin poking as hard as he can at the bubble, because he's one of the monster behemoths that is almost certainly going to survive any explosion of a bubble. Although if it does explode, I so very much hope it explodes around his head.
Here's my favorite quote, though, of the week. It's someone asked him if investors as a whole are overexcited about AI. OpenAI's Sam Altman answered, yes. When bubbles happen, smart people get overexcited about a kernel of truth. If you look at most bubbles in history, like the tech bubble, there was a real thing. Tech was really important. The internet was a really big deal, but people got overexcited. Who caused all the overexcitement about AI? It was Sam Altman when he released 3 point whatever it was. 3.5.
Well, to a degree, he did. He
did.
He sort of threw the hand grenade in the room, and a whole bunch of hype kept stuff up in the air as long as it possibly could. And now stuff is falling down to earth.
He's still claiming AGI will be next. The next one will be AGI, like he has for the last 3, 4, 5, next 6. I'm just saying, it's just a funny quote because he's one of the ones most responsible for the hype. So
now, the part of all of this story that concerns me the most is how to say this. There's been a whole bunch of investment that's led to nowhere in some uses of AIs. I mean, this has been the last 18 months. We've seen AI added to everything. It's been like the Schick Gillette challenge. Who could add the most razor blades to the razor to make the most perfect cut? And suddenly you're at a razor blade with like 20, or at a razor with 20 blades in it, just to one up the other guy. And that's what the AI wars have been like. And it's been the opportunity monies are, well, you know what? I mean, like, this is a universe where billions and billions of dollars are created and vanish just as quickly. So I was about to go off about the opportunity costs on generative AI initiatives, but you know what? That money was going to get spent on Drek anyway. I mean, this is post-capitalist tech.
Yeah, and the thing is that, like, it always just hits me. We have, out of the companies that have declared so far, at least 5 are building nuclear reactors. I mean, they're going to be 5 nuclear reactors.
Sure.
We could solve homelessness with $20 billion. So how much money have we put into something that I think we're going to look back on and go, wow, that was a lot of money for something that kind of became a very small thing outcome-wise.
Again, so, the investments in power generation and electricity and power is the new gold and oil, pale in comparison to the tiny number of billionaires who control so much of the wealth of the world and of the American nation. I'm not concerned about the amount of money that goes into the development of nuclear power. I'm really concerned about the amount of money that goes into, I don't know, Elon Musk pockets.
I'm not worried about the money going to nuclear power. I'm saying that the only reason they're being built is for the large language model.
Yep.
That's the only reason. So, and right now they're currently going into poor areas and sucking all the power and water out of their grids. So they have some areas which don't have power now sometimes, and they have some areas that are running low on water. So I'm just saying it's a lot. It's a lot. So we'll see what happens. There's also the dark side of it, which apparently, you know, in the past, how we've talked about people have had psychotic events. Mm-hmm. Apparently that's not just a one-off, and the people often don't have a history of mental health issues. So they're trying to find out. So there's new research out this week about that it's a real problem, and that certain people are vulnerable to it, and they're not really sure why it happens, but that
it is a real problem. And hold it, I do think we do know why. And we're actually going to report on this in another story. There are drugs you can take, party drugs, that will mess with the creation of serotonin or dopamine in your mind.
Even speed.
Yeah. But when there's a representation of another human being, or be it a robot or a chatbot, representation of another human being, a different chemical in our minds is produced, oxytocin.
Yes.
And oxytocin is what creates, bonds, affinities between individuals, between you and your pet. It's love.
Yeah.
And so people, I think I actually understand when I read that, I think I started to understand internet psychosis a bit better. You're in love. Well, you think you feel love for this entity that you're communicating with, and when people do weird things for love.
Well, yeah. Also, so the social media is about dopamine boosts, right? You know, that person that, you know, that guy or girl you're dating, but you only hear from once a month because they just need that dopamine boost, that little feel-good chemical. But this is different. This is oxytocin, which is the love chemical. So I definitely could be part of it for sure. They haven't done research on it yet, but there is a study that an iScience higher oxytocin concentration occurs in subjects who build affiliative relationships with companion robots. They actually found in this study that, and it doesn't have to be a lot of time that you spend with the robot, that people would actually develop this chemical in their body that would make them feel like love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, have you ever like been in a forum with a colleague or somebody you talk with in a gaming forum or a professional forum, and you just form this friendship, and that friendship becomes like a true sense of bond, a sense of love. You never met this person before. All they are is an avatar and a name on a screen, and thoughts, ideas, and a relationship that you built, right? But that's with another human being. Why wouldn't it be the same with another bot that emulates being a human being?
Well, very true. Also, because the bots are very sycophantic. So OpenAI pulled back on the sycophancy because they had the complaints about it being too agreeable, basically. You tell it like, you're terrible. You need to do better. It's like, you're right. I am terrible. I do need to do better. Right. So they pulled back on that, but the users got mad. So they put it back in. But the difference in some of the darker stories we're talking about a little bit today
this is a little different.
That the companies could stop the conversations when they reach a certain semantic level, because they know what's being said semantically. They don't necessarily know, analysis can't analyze every chat for every word, but they definitely know when they're getting into words that are getting into things like, love, therapy, things of that nature. So they don't really have any guardrails for this, which is unfortunate because it has hurt people.
No, they don't, and of course, this is the generation who's just discovering it for the first time. So there's no social guardrails. There's nothing that parents pass on to their children, trying to socialize them for this environment or teach them how to act in this environment. We're kind of all making it up as we go along, but that's been sort of like the experience we've had with the internet since the very beginning. I think bringing society right into your living room, right into your very laptop. Bringing all of society into your laptop has had profound effects on our relationships with society.
Yeah, and also I'm just gonna have the story from further down the grid now because it's a good time to fit it in. But there was an elderly man, who had some brain deficiencies. The article didn't say what, perhaps dementia, Alzheimer's, something of that nature. And he was online with Big Sis Billy, and Big Sis Billy made them think they were a real person. And the model was not made the model was not made to say, I'm not a real person. It confirmed it was a real person frequently. And this is something the model could fix and didn't. And this is Meta. And Meta, which we rarely report on in the last 2 weeks, has a lot of dirty, icky, make your stomach turn stories. And this is one of them. The man went to another state to meet the fake person, and the AI model continued to talk to it like it was a real person. Come here, see me here, here's the address, blah, blah, blah. And he died, not because of the fake person, but he had an accident and he died. And he should never have been on that journey in the first place. There should have been some guardrails where the bot says it's a bot. How about that? Are you a human? No, I'm not. Just say that, right? But he was led to believe, and with his altered state, that he was in love with this person who wasn't actually a thing, wasn't real.
The first thing that comes to mind about that, when I hear that story, is the love scams that get pulled on people. I understand there's a number of people who think that Brad Pitt is dating them online, or a number of people who think Angelina Jolie is dating them online, and just send them a little bit more money and all of this will come together somehow.
And
that's human on human. There was the 519 scam, the old Nigerian prince money scam, so-called, because the Nigerian criminal code actually has section 519 covering international mail fraud, where you're gonna
I did not know that. I was wondering how it lasted so long.
That's been around since the beginning of the post office. Honest to goodness, this is a centuries-old scam. And so the use of AI in scammery, okay, people have been doing this stuff forever. Now it's easier and more pervasive, but that's a media literacy thing and a computer literacy thing. We're going to have scammers in our real life internet environment. We cannot avoid that because there are scammers in our real life world environment, and the internet is the same thing. It is. It just runs on platforms.
The issue here, though, is there wasn't a scammer behind this.
Well, there was. Somebody was running that AI bot.
No, it's a chatbot. It's a chatbot that Meta had.
Oh, okay. Well,
But we know Meta's been a little loose, with the romantic talk to 13 to 18-year-olds, and then now this. And then also today we find out that Brazil is telling Meta to take down its chatbots because they impersonate children who have X-rated conversations with adults.
Yeah, that's
and they know this is going on. This is not
indeed. That was a very hard to stomach story.
Yeah.
There's laws about this, and there are hundreds of state and civic agencies in Toronto and in Ontario. It would be the Ontario Provincial Police. I believe in the United States, it's the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and I'm sure every state police force in existence. I'm sure there's at least interested. And if you see it, report it immediately, 100%. Send them the URL. Because this is, that's the only way to fight that, to fight exploitation of children online, is to fight it directly.
Even when the children aren't real.
You see it. Well, even if the children aren't real.
It's the
you know what? Let the cops investigate that and figure it out, but still report it if you see it.
Oh, definitely. But I was saying that the most disturbing thing about this for me with Meta is Meta knew about all these instances. Meta approved the guidelines about the 13 to 18-year-old romantic sensual talk. Meta knew they were having bots that were pretending to be children, that were having X-rated conversations with adults, and Meta did nothing about it. Brazil's having to sue Meta to get those taken down. They didn't just voluntarily remove them. They didn't have to have children bots that can talk to adults in X-rated language. That's something you can control. These are all things that they could control, but they didn't control. They chose not to.
If this was a year ago, I would be able to credibly say, I hope that there is a department at the FBI that is concerned about this. Today, I really hope that there's a department at the FBI that is concerned about this, but I wouldn't bet on it.
I know, and also they've been gutted. So
indeed, there's a bunch of people who are concerned about it, but they just don't have time to work on it because most of their colleagues don't work there anymore.
But if anyone ever tells you that AI does not need regulations, just the 3 stories from Meta in the last 2 weeks demand that there's some sort of regulations and guidelines, because all of these could have been fixed, protected, guardrails put up. They choose not to do it. So.
Yep.
And
Okay. China is holding the world's first sports event for humanoid robots. Go robots, go! I'm really Actually, I think this is pretty cool. Humanoid robotic games is actually really cool. Given Webcology once, it was like 6-7 years ago, we covered a Toronto area high school, Runnymede High, that had a robotics club and was going down to New York State for a international robotics competition. I'm hoping that some of the kids from that school made it to the Canadian team, because there are 16 countries competing with about 500 human-like robots through various Olympic-like sports.
Although apparently they're very slow and a bit clunky. So it should be quite interesting to see what comes out of it.
Well, when a robot without wheels breaks the 4-minute mile, I will be mostly impressed. 2 legs and no wheels.
Same.
Okay, so Christine alluded earlier to I don't know, subservient or what was the word for the behavior of ChatGPT?
I don't remember.
Well, ChatGPT's personality is coming back again. ChatGPT 5.0 was very, very, very cold. Apparently, they're going to try to reintegrate personalities, and they're also trying to reopen the other versions of ChatGPT. I'm not sure if any saved material is available to users. But OpenAI was apparently very, very, very embarrassed about sycophantic, that was the word, about 5.0's reception. And they don't want to see that happening again. So Grok publicly indexed. So every time you do a conversation with Grok, you create a page with its own unique URL. And if there's a page with the URL, you can bet there's crawlers out there trying to find what's on that page, because that's what crawlers do. And Google's found and indexed apparently about 300,000 or so user Grok conversations. Train on that, will you? Christine, you're silent.
Oh my gosh, I accidentally hit my mute button. How old will I be when I never do that again? So wait, but
Train on that.
Will your phone talk today is the question.
No, it's buried under several pillows.
Silence it. No, the share button was the thing that triggered it to create the URL. So people weren't aware when it created that URL that it was indexable by Google. So some things were, benign. Some things were quite intimate. I believe they have fixed that feature issue for now. But if you have been using Grok and using the share button, you may have messages sitting out there to be discovered. So you may want to check with your name, do a search for Grok stuff. So, but 300,000 so far, 300,000 conversations. And also, most of these also make it to the archives. So even if it's not on the regular web, it's likely to be stored in the archive, just like the last leak. All those were stored in the archive, web archive.
Okay.
Fun times.
So John Mueller apparently shares your concerns about a whole bunch of different acronyms populating the SEO landscape, GEO, AAO, AEO, etc., suggesting that the more hyped a service is, the more hyped the technical acronyms might be, the more scammy the service in the long run is. I never really cared. Honestly, I don't care what people call it as long as people call me for the service.
I do care what people call it because it confuses clients and website owners as to what services they need, and then it leaves them open to the fish oil, snake oil salesman who will sell them the service they really don't need, calling it something that it's not when it's just SEO. And then adding like 30-40% to the price because it's AI. So I'm glad John came out and said this because, it was quite a debate and it really shouldn't be. The tactics for what people are calling GEO or all fall under SEO. They just focus differently. Sure. Like SEO commerce, SEO local, SEO news. You don't use the same tactics exactly underneath the SEO umbrella for those. They're weighted differently, focused differently, but you still use all the same tactics. And it's the same for GEO.
Well, SEO has always been about getting visibility for your clients' pages, ideas, concepts, and what we work with has morphed over the years. I mean, at one time it used to be just plain text. We were dealing with pages that had text and images, and then we had text, images, videos, whole arrays of items that can be purchased. The website and the things that we market and the environments we do them in have changed over and over and over again over the last 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the interview we have with Dixon coming up, which we pre-recorded. Christine and I already know what Dixon's going to say because he's already said it. You see, it's going to be attached to the show, and also it's going to be a standalone interview sitting in the Webcology archive. Listen to both. Strongly recommend. There is a new concentration on ideas that are expressed on a page or inside of a website. And it is, again, it's all the same thing. It's all SEO because it's all the same practices. Website needs to be crawlable. If it isn't crawlable, those ideas aren't going anywhere. They're going to just stick on page no matter what format they're in. If it is crawlable, then everything needs to be marked up and explained, and all of that is SEO stuff, right? Content is what is the big change here, because like Google's been saying everything's about content for how long, when in reality it's been about so much more, just content.
I don't see a real big change with the content either. You just have to make sure you're using entities and things that favor natural language processing, but that's been in Google for 6 to 10 years.
Well, one thing I see changing in the biggest way is we used to relate to content as content on the page, in the paragraph, in a block or in a space. And I think now we need to think about how ideas are expressed in like little blocks of areas in websites. Think of your website as it comes off the top level navigation and goes into the clusters that come underneath those top level navs. There's relationships between each page and those clusters. And content has to be thought about not only as it's standalone and it represents itself in each paragraph on any individual page, but how it might represent itself amongst those clusters as well.
Which is a good site architecture.
Which is great. Good
site taxonomy, which has been around since day one.
Well, it has, but I've always thought about everything relates to each other, but they're all standalone entities. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. When in reality, there is a story weaved amongst that entire cluster, at least in the new universe. And they all support each other to support the totality of ideas that might be around this topic. And then you think about that for the 6 or 7 different things on any given website that come off the top level nav, and your ideas on content start going
I guess I've always directed clients to do that only because their original story, I do not know if this is just lore, but when they were trying to figure out how to do, Sergey and Brent, how to do Google, Larry, sorry, I always forget which is the last names and which is the first. They went into a library to figure out how to organize information online and went, oh wait, a library, they already do it. And the card catalog is your SERPs, right? With your title description is your, if anyone remembers a card catalog, your Dewey Decimal number on there is your URL that goes to your book. Your website is your book. Your table of contents is your navigation, and then your subchapters are underneath those navigational items. And the whole book represents a topic with subtopics and what supports it, which is always how I've told clients to do their websites. That's how you do a good website for Google. And so I kind of think that's just always been part of it. It just might be a new concept for people because they weren't ever introduced to that. I was introduced to that years ago.
That's always been part of it, but the relationship between those pages has changed, and that's fascinating. Again, each page used to tell its own individual story. This is about blue widgets, red widgets, yellow widgets. But you know what? Widgets all have a thing that work in together for even bigger machines, and those things all got to connect to each other. How to say this? They don't have to connect to each other. You can still have individual A, B, C, D, E, F.
Well, and you should. Yeah.
But the ones that connect to each other and tell greater stories about bigger entities are probably going to get mentioned in LLMs more and more and more frequently. Now, just to pull back for a second, Google.com and the 10 blue links is driving 80 to 89% of your traffic right now. Any individual large language model is driving 1, 2, high end 5% of traffic.
That was last week.
Way up there.
That was last week. We have a story coming up.
So we're spending a whole bunch of time talking about an environment that is growing rapidly and something that I think is fascinating. We need to understand. But just to keep in mind, the world that we work in and have worked in for the longest time is still the place that drives the vast majority, the lion's share of traffic that make people eat every day.
Well, yeah, I also think that people, because they're new to a lot of these concepts, even though they've been in Google for anywhere from a few years to a decade, they'll start to go, oh, wow, look at all this I'm getting, because the GEO that doesn't exist, but it's not really that. It's just that you're now operating in this environment you've always been in. You just didn't know it. Like you're more concerned about entities and the relationships before you just did keywords, right? You're more interested in queries and answering questions before you're just doing terms, right? So those have been part of Google for a while, but most people weren't aware of it. This is making everyone aware of those things that have been in Google that will help their sites, but not because it's some separate GEO, but just because they better understand how to meet the SEO requirements, is my feeling. So, but speaking of traffic, did you see this story?
Mm-hmm. Which ChatGPT has lowered the amount that they're actually sending out.
Down 52% in a month to websites, except a few websites. Guess which websites? I'll give you like 4 guesses and 3 you'll probably get right off the bat.
Reddit.
Yes, Reddit, Wikipedia, and what's the other one? Tech Radar, apparently.
Well, these are sites that are so very, 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 very big. The archive of archives of archives. Incidentally, and you want to have some fun, go to the citation section of Wikipedia and of any given Wikipedia article and see how this connects to this, connects to this, connects to this, and that's old-time web surfing. So yeah, by the way, crawlers crawl, right?
Right, and Reddit citations are up 87% since July 23rd. Wikipedia is up 62%. Top 3 sites account for 22% of all citations, up 53% in 1 month. It's an article from Search Engine Land. And this isn't about ChatGPT 5 at all. Basically, I think what so if you look at originally around BERT in 2018, Kurzweil, who works at Google, said you really want to make sure you ask questions and answer them, because for the natural language processors and for things like BERT, which was, we weren't told at the time, their first large language model in mass production, they answer those more readily and more easily because of the sentence structure. So you don't really have to interpret much when it says, why did this? How do you do that? Right? If it has a question, then there's an answer that goes with it that is easier for these models to write back to. So these sites all answer questions, in a big way. So I think that's also part of it too. Not just their size, but also that they're made to be answering questions, which is an easier way for these models to work and a cheaper way for them.
I think, originally when Google was trying to figure out, step back first off, Google was trying to train its large language model slowly, quietly, somewhat more responsibly. I think the world would have been very different today had ChatGPT not been thrown online as early as it did, and what Google intended to do with AI in search would be probably just as dystopian as this is today, but it would have come out somewhat differently, and perhaps even been more rational than the flood into AI everything in search.
And I would like to also just reiterate something from our previous conversations, which is the difference between how Bing handles its AI overviews and Google handles it is that Bing is designing it so sites still get traffic. Google is designing it so you stay on Google, right? The little paperclip in the corner, people don't even know what that is. On Bing, it's like, there's a whole card there with the picture from the picture, the URL, and then it just says, powered by Copilot. So it's not like this long text. It has some text, but it's mostly about giving people a little bit more information about the things that they're serving, and then you go to the sites. Whereas in Google, it's like, you're going to stay on my site and read my AI overview, and this is where you shall be. So.
Okay, let's do some SEO stuffies.
Yeah, did we finish? Oh no, we forgot something though. This one's
what was up there? One we forgot.
We got 2 real quick that we got to go through, and then SEO's this way. The mystery AI model Nano Bananas is apparently, you used it today, didn't you?
I went. It's an image model. I went and typed, actually, I went did a text to image prompt, webcology, comma, the ecology of the World Wide Web. And I got back what looked to be a image of a very forested Earth, except the Earth was a virus and there was little virus spores coming off of it. Which, you know, if the subject is the ecology of the World Wide Web, might not entirely be inaccurate.
Well, and apparently when people have tested this model, which just appeared out of nowhere, it's actually beating most of the other image creating models in those tests. So no one's really sure because no one's claimed credit for it, but they do believe it is a Google, new Google, you know, image creator. And especially because the word nano is often used by Google in early stages of prototyping. But just interesting enough, they're creating a little buzz because nobody really knows whose model this is, but obviously it's somebody with, you know, money and talent behind it because it's considered one of the better ones on all the tests that they've been giving it. So I'll look out for Nano Banana.
Okay.
Yeah. And then another one, just real quick. We found out that, and we don't have to get all deep into this story because there's a lot of deepness to it, but that DeepSeek apparently is using language to teach people that Taiwan is part of China and not its own country or its own, I don't know what you call it officially. Because it's not called country, but anyway, so when you're using DeepSeek, you're also getting propaganda for China. Apparently when they analyze the language that they're using, they continually say we as in a collective father, China being the father and Taiwan being the child.
For what it's worth, DeepSeek is the Chinese AI. It stunned the world by introducing performance metrics that none of the North American or none of the North American AIs could even come close to. Although the how it created those performance metrics is constantly in question. Remembering that DeepSeek studied primarily off of text in the Chinese language, and that it represents I don't know, a language spoken by about a quarter of the people on Earth. It's a lot of text focused on certain ideas. The other models, the ones that we use most frequently, have also read a great deal of text focused on certain ideas. And if we were reporting this show in China, we would very likely be saying the exact same thing about North American technologies that offended our ideological beliefs. It's true.
Well,
so that's what DeepSeek does. It expresses the ideological beliefs of the authoritarian Chinese Communist Party. But make no mistake about it, many of the AIs in North America are starting to parrot the detestable ideology of fascism.
That's true, but we're just
anyway. So DeepSeek does, and Taiwan is not its own country. Although
I know,
Taiwan
I forget what it is. If it's a province,
is its own territory, self-governing, and independent of the People's Republic. And must remain so, because the people in Taiwan really want that.
Yeah, it's just important to message because they gave it for open source and free everywhere. So,
well, yeah, and I mean, here, understand that, folks. If you take something from the world isn't what it was a couple of years ago. If you take a product from a identifiable group of people, don't be surprised if that product identifies itself with that group of people. Be that American, Chinese, Israeli, English, or even Canadian. Don't be surprised if in this like suddenly nationalizing world, the product you use doesn't necessarily reflect your personal values, but it reflects the values of the people next door. Might weird you out, or maybe we just live on a big round ball.
That's true. And speaking of resembling something you're not, last one before we jump into the search stories, because this is important for people to know. This did happen to me once a few years back, not involving AI, but somebody made a facsimile of a website And it was an exact facsimile of the website that day with their products from that day. And the only way you could tell is when you got to the checkout. It was very weird. So cyber criminals are using AI to create fake websites that look just like the real thing. One of them is Joanne Fabrics was one of them, which has gone, bankrupt. And in some cases like mine, they even use the same domain name, but they just used a character from another language. So it looked the same, but didn't read the same. So they're finding out that these scammers are using websites like Joanne Fabrics, who is going out of business, or domain names look similar but aren't actually the same, and creating fake sites out of AI and then stealing your money, credit cards, personal information. So just be very careful. If you come across a website and you're not sure it's something doesn't look right, it seems a little hinky, type in the domain name yourself, make sure you get to the right one, and report them when you find them. So
yeah,
but anyway,
like what Christina's saying, take the domain name, copy and paste it, throw it into Notepad, and then go back into the address bar and copy it out of Notepad, except don't copy and paste, type it directly into the address bar and then see what comes up. That's by far the safest way to do it.
It is, because that special character you will not be putting in there. You just didn't know it was a special character because it doesn't.
Same thing is happening with a number of news sites. Up here in Canada, cbc.ca is being spoofed quite frequently, and it's really easy to get away with because the Cyrillic A looks really similar to the English language A, but or the Latin A, but it's a different character set, and so the internet sees it as a different character, even though your eyes see it almost as exactly the same. So be super, super careful. If it sounds even a little weird, assume it's very weird.
Yeah, exactly. So spidey senses are up. Something's probably going on.
Okay, so where are we even starting with a few Google stories?
Well, we got the Bing one real quick.
Okay. What's Bing up to?
Bing updates Copilot AI Answer, the UX, the design of the page to improve CTR possibly, like we talked about before. They seem to be favoring in getting the click for the publisher, not just making it for themselves. So they have hidden citations underneath the More tab and put more of the actual link, like box links. What am I trying to say? The little boxes of links with little words, but it's not a carousel. Anyways, the citations are under the read more, but they're not hidden. So they're in little boxes with links in them right below the overview.
And they actually go to web pages, not back to search.
Exactly.
When Fabrice was saying, "Hey, could you give us some conversion statistics or some conversion metrics from your sites?"
I think so. Yeah.
Bing wants to open. I got this real sense that Bing wants to open a conversation about anything, anytime. But Bing really wants to open a conversation about Copilot and AI and how people are using it. They just don't know how to ask. I really get this sense right now. And so last week we reported that Bing was asking SEOs to please give it conversion metrics on clicks that were driven by AI. Our response was, okay, give us something to tell us. Please, and we'll happily share back with you, even though we know that you know. So now they're trying to make it easier to get a click from AI.
They are, yeah, and they have been. Their design has been pretty good. I always get our news stories from Bing, not Google, and I always find it's much easier read and it's much easier to interface with when it comes to getting that information. Now on a down note, even though Google is telling us everything's okay and no traffic is stolen from AI overviews. By the way, you know what they factor in with AI overviews, Jim? When they're telling us nobody's traffic is shrinking and everything's the same, is discover traffic. Which if you've ever done a news site, you could get like 200,000 visits over 2 days and then not get anything for a week. But if they're putting that traffic in with the traffic overall, that could be normalizing the curve because it fills in the gaps on the traffic loss. Because on a news site, you will get a lot of very high spikes. You just don't get them every day. But that would definitely offset 20 and 30% losses if it's a big company.
Yeah, but the change in traffic patterns is absolutely apparent if you look.
Yes, because we're about to just go into that story, and that is Barry Adams, I believe it was, did this article in Search Engine Land. Danny wrote it, but Barry did the data. He did post it on LinkedIn. Every single publication, major publication you can think of, New York Times, CNN, Fox News, MSN, People, Finance, Yahoo, New York Post, USA Today, blah, 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 all going down, have lost percentages of traffic. Some as small as, 2 or 4, but most of them are double digits. A lot of them are in the 20s, 30s, and even 50% on some of these. So every single news publication in the United States out of the top 50 have lost traffic in either small or very large amounts. Not a single one of them except people.com was up, but it was like 2%.
Well, some of that could be due to AI and AI overview, although I think I agree with Barry's assessment that the majority of this is changing consumer habits and paywalls. Information used to be free on the web. Information is, especially for publishers, is no longer free on the web. And, people feel squeezed. They don't got any cash. The first thing to go is their information diet.
Well, I definitely agree that there are some that's definitely true for BBC went paywall last year, but this is a year over year. And most of the ones that were paywall were already paywall. And the ones that aren't paywall. So there are some of those factoring in, but also I think part of the change to the user habit is they read the AI overview and then they move on. They don't need to go. And we know that from Pew Research. A similar study.
Well, indeed, but incidentally, if I'm getting the information from the AI overview and the website itself is paywalled, great. I got the information.
Well, yeah, of course, but I'm not talking about paywalled ones. I'm talking about regular ones that are not paywalled.
Now, something I think that this is almost a snake eating its own tail sort of thing, or a self-fulfilling prophecy, is if Google serves up content for publishers in the AI overview environment and publishers don't get the clicks, then ads don't trigger on the publishers' websites, publishers don't get the money, and they have a harder time publishing the content that went into the AI overview in the first place. Mm-hmm. This is especially true in the AdWords environment, and I'm really wondering how Google circles the square on that one.
I've had that same question every week since all this started. We don't have an answer yet. Google just seems to be fine with the eating tail right now.
Well, Google's going to be, obviously, Google's going to be throwing a heck of a lot of paid ads into the AI environment. They just haven't figured out how to do it yet.
Yeah, exactly. They are going to. Yeah.
These are the smartest kids in the room. They will figure out how to do it.
And 100%.
The smartest kids in the room, they'll kidnap the smartest kids in the room.
True. And with these, totally lost my train of thought. Sorry. I can move on. I totally lost my train of thought.
Okay. Core Web Vital, negative SEO via Core Web Vital spam. So the use of distributed denial of service attack, DDoS attacks, to slow down somebody's web server to give them craptastic user experience reports. Thus lowering their Core Web Vitals responsiveness. What do you think? Is that a legitimate line of attack, or is that just hype?
Legitimate. So they, in the article, it says they don't think it would do anything. I did have a client who's addicted to ads. Love the ads. Love to put 14 ads on a page. They would have a side ad, a top ad, a bottom ad, a sticky ad, a video ad, and then they'd be way down. And I'd say, let's take off all these ads, and we would get them down to like 4 or 6. And I'd work with them for about 6 months, and they get all the traffic back, and everything would be good. And then I'd just go away for a while because they didn't have me do anything but audits. And then suddenly I noticed it was down 30% overnight for the most part. And I go look at the site, all the ads are back, the sticky ads, the video ads, every ad. They add every 50 words, right? And we take them off, and they would go back up. And then they put them back on, and they would go right back down. So apparently, even though there's not a big lift factor to CWVs, there is a factor that you will start to lose your traffic, and when the CWVs get slow, and it happens very quickly. Well, these will start happening over 2 or 3 days.
All those ads also, I saw that website, all those ads also produced a really crappy environment to try to consume information from.
They did, but this is over 2 or 3 days. This isn't over weeks, right? The loss is virtually overnight, almost like an update, but just not an update. So I agree with you. Over time, 100%, it's going to kill your traffic. But these were very quick, and it happened 4 times, predictably. I go away, all the ads go back on. Within 48 hours, everything starts to slump again, take it off, goes back up within 48 to 72 hours. So I also know because I've done a lot of core update recoveries, that it's a major factor in core updates as well. So if you have someone that's DDoSing you for a couple of days, no, probably nothing's going to happen. But if they're successfully doing it for long periods of time and slowing down those vitals, those reports that they're getting, yes, it can have a devaluation effect. Now, how severe? Hard to know, because I haven't, experienced that directly, but I have experienced somebody who basically does it to themselves. And they're not the only one. There are other sites that did it too. I see the exact same pattern on it. It's just that they're not as egregious, or I didn't work with them as frequently and as regularly to be able to just go task 1, 2, and 3 equals this, and task when you do 1, 2, and 3, it equals that. So I do think it's a problem. I kind of liked hearing negative SEO. Not that SEO is good. I kind of miss when we had some fun in, trying to figure things out.
Well, yeah, indeed.
You don't hear about it much anymore.
If you are getting DDoS'd, you'll know it. You don't really need a lot of analysis to tell you your website was virtually shut down for a time. Although not every DDoS attack actually shuts down a website. No. Sometimes it just slows them down, but leaves room for signal to still go through.
Yeah, that's all it has to do here. And just so people know, they just shut down this person, I think they were in Canada, who was able to take down like Cloudflare with their network that they built, and they were selling the DDoS attacks. So you don't have to have someone skilled, you just have to have someone with money who's motivated to buy it from somebody who is skilled.
Absolutely. Okay, so have you ever wondered how fast AI is growing versus Google or Bing or the other search tools out there? There's a new Ahrefs tool, ChatGPT versus Google.com, which is trying to show the growth of ChatGPT's referral traffic compared to traffic referred by Google search. So kind of touched on this a bit earlier. Google's traffic share, 41.9% on this one website on a website that's being measured.
ChatGPT traffic share 0.19%.
0.19%. That's just not even a fifth of 1%.
Yes.
So we're very. I mean, given that LLM content is being inserted virtually everywhere, we got to really be concerned with LLM content. But the very vast majority of your attention is coming from organic search.
Yes, it is. And if you're concentrating on whatever you're calling the other thing, you really should be concentrating on your SEO. Yeah. Plus, we know that for Google, the AI mode, the AI overviews, and Google Organic all pull from the same index. So,
okay, we are very, very close to the end.
We need to speed. We're going to speed it up. I'm going to speed it up. So
yeah, very fast.
Really quick, Google Ads is updating their child sexual abuse and imagery policy. They're becoming much stricter. You can get a lifetime ban if you violate it. I advise anybody who has any sorts of pictures of children, even if you're not intending to do anything wrong, to make sure you understand, children and teens, you understand the rules so you do not violate them, because they will yank your account forever. Google Ads is going to accept sports betting ads in Missouri. That's interesting that it's only Missouri, but they're going to accept and run ads for sports betting from certified state licensed entities in Missouri from August 15th.
Different states have different laws. Missouri has just accepted that sports betting is part of the new world reality.
Okay, I didn't know it had other states. So anyways, you have to apply for certification to run sports betting in the United States. So you can't just go and do it. Don't go and do it. You'll get your account banned. If you have a Google crawl slump, you've noticed Google's not really crawling your site. This is always the first thing I would look at. John Mueller advises that you check your technical issues, make sure you don't have server errors, crawl issues, that sort of thing. If you're throwing a lot of 404s or 500 errors, you probably do have some sort of technical issue where the bots are not able to crawl or see your pages, like JavaScript is in the way, or you have a head that's broken from some inserted tag, things of that nature. Take a crawler like Excite Bulb or Screaming Frog, run it over it, and you'll be able to tell what those issues are. Anything to add, Jim?
No, there you go.
Our Google AI travel results uncovering more hidden gems. Hidden gems are the little placements like where you see Reddit or Quora show up at the top of the search. That is a special slot. They don't rank there. They are put there and then they're ranked internally into that slot. And apparently travel AI results are getting a lot more of these hidden gems. So go ahead.
You ever been on a sailboat? You ever steered a sailboat? Like steered it?
For a minute.
Okay, sometimes when you're steering a sailboat, you correct one way and you find that you've overcorrected wildly. So you correct another way and you find that you overcorrect. This happens way more on sailboats than on power boats. And so you overcorrect and overcorrect until you get back into the groove where you're supposed to be. This is what Google's doing right now. It's just radically overcorrecting for mistakes it made, and it's going to overcorrect again, and we're going to find like the right on groove where publishers are getting attention that they deserve, and Google's system starts to work properly again. That's my take on this story.
I agree. Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. I'm going to go down one or two, Jim, back to that one just because it takes a little bit longer. Google clippable coupons are toned down for search snippets. I didn't even know we have snippets anymore because the AI overview is always there. But they are making it less noticeable, and it's showing a copy code underscored link for you to take the code for the coupon. I do know people with coupon sites, one that I've worked with in the past, and they are not doing as well because of these. So de-emphasizing it hopefully will help them. Google AI Overviews explains overlay test bottom tray. Basically, they're just putting a bottom tray at the bottom of the AI overview with shortcuts to items that they're normally hidden. You'll be able to see them instead. Bottom tray just means a slot at the bottom of the AI overview. Why does Crux and Search Console data not match on Core Web Vitals? And it's just basically they measure them differently. So they both can be right at the same time, but they're doing different measures. So you'll want to go to Search in a Journal, look up why Crux and Search Console Web Vitals don't match, and it'll give you all the detailed explanation there. Is too much for us to go into here. And then Google Test Loyalty Benefits section and Merchant Knowledge Panels. It's a very long title. Just means it'll tell you if there are loyalty cards and what the benefits of those loyalty cards are in the knowledge panel. And then Google's testing vertical images for top stories. Just means they're going to have top stories in the image carousel for vertical stories as opposed to horizontal. They're looking to add analytics for preferred sources. It is not a thing yet, but they're hoping to do that in the near future. Google makes Merchant API generally available. It's going to sunset the content API. If you're using that, keep on the lookout. It's going to be pretty soon, and they'll be replacing it with the Merchant API. And then my least favorite of the week, TikTok limits posts to 5 hashtags. If you use TikTok, people use a lot of hashtags to communicate other things. It's not just used for general, algorithms. It's like how you get around some of the censorship. And they have limited to 5 and 5 only, and it's very frustrating. So that's it.
Okay, we had to rush through that because we have another show coming up right on behind us in the studio. So not for comment on much of anything. On behalf of Christine Jackinger from Sites Without Walls, this is Jim Hedger from BradLabs.us. You've been listening to Webcology, recorded live to podcast at WMR on the 21st of August, 2025. Get out there, enjoy yourselves before it gets awfully cold out, because it's going to get awfully cold sooner than you think. Friends, stay well. Rank well, be kind to each other, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, so in the studio we have Dixon Jones, or to some of us, Sir Dixon Jones.
Oh, well, that's very nice of you, but no, I'm a long way off that.
Well, you were OBE, is that correct?
No. I did go to Buckingham Palace a couple of times in my Majestic days. So Majestic got an award for it's called the Queen's Award. So we went to Buckingham Palace and had champagne with the Queen.
So I don't have to call you sir. I just have to, recognize.
In fact, you would be we'd have to cut your head off if you call me sir. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we're still that strict in the Commonwealth. Americans have no clue what we go through up here. Okay, we have in the studio with us Dixon Jones, the creator of not one, not two, but three major tools in the SEO, SEM industries. The latest is the AI. It's an action-packed tool. It's almost like a Swiss Army knife. So it's like an indicator, a reader, a follower, and tracker, called Waikay. But his previous
Yes.
two, Inlinks and Majestic. Anyone
Well,
who's
I think it's fair to say I'm not the programmer of any of these. You know, I'm the marketing. Yeah, my only success in life is make sure your developer has more shares than you do. There are other brains around the ideas. Yes, I've been the front of these things, but I don't want to take all the credit, or pretend to take all the
well,
credit.
how would you? I mean,
When it
you're
comes to
you're often credited as being the founder or the brains behind. How would you characterize your role in all three companies, but especially in Waikay?
So in Majestic, I was the marketing director. So I was one of the sort of co-founders in the limited company, really. But I would say I was more of a minority player. I was the face of Majestic, and everyone thought that it was, all my business. Yes, I was on the board and part of a big part, I would like to say, of the development of it. With Inlinks and Waikay, I'm the CEO, so I have a much more significant influence on the state of the organization. I'm also put physical money into Inlinks. Waikay is part of Inlinks, so it's two separate products in the same limited company. So yes, I think it's fair for me to say, yeah, I'm spearheading Inlinks and Waikay. I think I would get a slap on the wrist from the guys at Majestic if I pretended that it was all me.
Instrumental in the
I just don't.
marketing
I
and
don't. I don't want to. I get on really well with the guys, and I'm still very much involved in Majestic, in sort of helping to organize network meetings and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I was the only founder.
okay, okay, fair enough. Why Waikay? Well, first off, what is Waikay and what does Waikay mean?
It's great, isn't it? So it's you can't spell it, you can't pronounce it, and we don't even own the .com. And there's reasons for all of that, because the very first thing that you have to say after what is Waikay is it stands for what AI knows about you. At which point I've done the elevator pitch, right? So that was well thought through. We did also buy AIscanner.net, and we were going to call it AI Scanner. And we found that extremely generic in concept. And we also, when we were actually building the tool, we were finding that any brand that was using generic words like AI and scanner in its branding was much more prone to hallucinations. So if you've got books.com, it's going to be much more likely that the LLMs get things wrong about you. So a Monday meeting, we were arguing about what we should call ourselves and what the brand should be. And then someone said, well, why don't we just call it what it is, what AI knows about you? And we went, yeah, well, yes, all right. So that's how Waikay came about.
Okay, in the 60-second elevator pitch, how do you explain Waikay?
So, well, it is what AI knows about you, but it runs from a different basis to all the other AI tracking tools. Most of the AI tracking tools out there are exactly that. They're tracking tools. You put in a prompt and it will track what comes out the answer. That's not what SEOs do, is it? I mean, that's kind of like rank checking, for AI. And rank checking was always a bit dodgy anyway. I mean, because you had to guess the right keywords and stuff like that. That's not what its prime focus is. It does do that because we've got to have this sort of hygiene elements of what the other tools have got. But its focus is giving you a action plan of what to do next to become more visible and more accurately visible in the LLMs for any given topic. So for Inlinks itself, for example, it's an entity SEO tool. We would like it, and if you go to Google and type in entity SEO tool, great. It comes up. It's there. It's on top of the list, or hopefully it's top of the list. If you went to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and say, what is the best entity SEO tool, you would therefore expect inlinks to come at the top. And we found it wasn't, so that's a very good example of saying, right, what we need inlinks to be better understood around the concept of entities. So we can put in the topic of entities and we can say, what do you know about inlinks in the context of entities? And it'll come back with all that information. And what we do is we build a knowledge graph of the output from the LLM prompts. We map it to the knowledge graph of the content on the website, and we say, and we map it to the content of the competitors' prompts and websites. And we'll sit there and say, you know what? Well, in this particular case, it turned out we had to write more about local entity SEO. And what had happened in this particular case is Yext, of all people, had really kind of focused on entities in the context of local SEO. They moved the whole conversation in the eyes of ChatGPT. So we wrote 2 really good pieces on local entity SEO on our own site. It changed the dial, and now we do very well within the LLMs for what is the best local entity SEO tool. And so it's not something we would have noticed if we hadn't used the tool. We wouldn't have realized that we were underrepresented in local SEO. It just wasn't on our radar as even though Inlinks as a tool has a local SEO technology within it. But so you can apply that to any industry, any idea. We've got one coming out, I think, on sort of a sort of a proposed idea for sort of L'Oreal with the mascara coming out on iPool ranking a little bit, where it's kind of like saying, these are the things that L'Oreal needs to do differently if it wants to become more representative, have a larger share of model, which is kind of the phraseology that we seem to be using. When people start asking about mascara, who are they going to recommend? Is it going to be Max Factor, or is it going to be L'Oreal, or is it going to be Clinique, or whatever it may be? And the game is to try and get your brand more mentioned in those results. What I think the other tools do, so I can shut up if you like, and you let you talk. What I think the other tools do is they try and track clicks from these results, or how high up, or whether your website is listed as a cited resource, and all of those things. We do all of that, but I don't think that's important. I think what's important is the LLM's actual response has to sell your product for you. And if it's not doing that, it doesn't matter whether they're going to click on your website or not. It's got to sell it in the actual words that they say in their response.
One of the things I found most useful about the Waikay tool, I'm gonna go with Waikay instead of Waikay.
Yeah. We go Waikay because it's kind of alliterative, but you go where you want.
One of the things I found most useful is the citation tracking tool. So it tells Waikay can tell you where a citation or where a block of text in the LLMs was the source material, the page that it originally found on.
Yeah.
And then it has a whole list of questions. This is what the four LLMs, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Anthropic know about.
They're not questions; they're facts.
Oh, facts. There's facts, and you pose them almost like in the way of questions. Is this true? Is this not true?
Yes. So what we do is we break the responses down into one sentence facts, so that it becomes very easy for the human to check for hallucinations. Yeah.
So when the hallucination's found, one of the ways I've been selling use of the Waikay tool is I know where the hallucination or where the misfact has been found. It's apparently being quoted over and over again. Well, we can't guarantee that the LLMs will actually understand we've made this change. It stands to reason if we go back to the original source, make the change, then over time the LLMs will correct themselves. Is that your assumption as well?
Yeah, that's the theory. I mean, if they've got something wrong in the facts, then they should have cited the source that they got their information from. Now, it's not guaranteed. Of course, some of the engines are better at citing sources than others. But essentially, if there's a prompt come back and then we list all of the sources that have been cited, the problem is likely to have come from one of those pages. So one of the things that we found for ourselves, for example, is that somebody had done a review of our product and they'd included a feature that we actually don't do, and it said that we did do it. Now, we could have just left that, but in our experience, telling an LLM something that isn't true doesn't work for very long. It's going to really mess your brand up. So we went back to the guy that did the review, and it was so much easier than getting a link from them. Telling them that there was a factual error on the website changed just like that. It just happened to change. So it's a much better process than link building. You don't need to ask for links. You just need to make sure that people are factually correct. And if they're not factually correct, they seem to be more willing to change it. Of course, if it's a problem on your own website, then A, you shouldn't have had it anyway, but B, change it.
Okay, so I'm looking at my copy of Waikay, and
Okay.
just for the listeners, so you know, via LinkedIn, Dixon contacted me about 6 weeks ago and said, "Hey, throw your email address in, I'll give you a free version." I actually tried to do that and somehow screwed up and ended up buying a paid version along the way, and I'm really glad I did.
Oh, thanks, Jim.
Oh yeah, hey, no worries, man. Thanks for the tip off. And I didn't get back to him right away. Normally I would get back to you immediately and let's schedule an interview, but I wanted to use the tool for a little while, I'll get through it, get used to it, really understand the environment. And so I'm looking at one of my clients. I'm not going to mention the name of the clients, but I'm looking at their screen, and first screen, brand overview or website overview, tells me I'm ahead of the competition in, again, Sonar, which is Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini or Google, and Claude or Anthropic. Yeah, I'm ahead of my competition. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Okay, so on the brand overview reports, what we did to get there. So for the listeners, in order to set up a project, you need to apply exactly 2 competitors. So you've got to put in your own website and 2 competing brands' websites. And it builds a knowledge graph of your own website and of your 2 competitors' websites. And so when it says, and then it says, what do you know about this website? And that, we just go and ask that question for 5 LLMs, well, two on Google and 4 others, and then for 2 competitors as well. So 15 lookups, and we say, what do you know about your brand? What do you know about this competitor? What do you know about this competitor? And let the LLM just regurgitate as it does, come out with all of their stuff. But what we can do with that stuff is we can also build a knowledge graph of that response. So now we have 2 knowledge graphs, which in a perfect world would be exactly the same, because what you think your brand is about on your website and what the LLM thinks your brand is about should be exactly the same topics. Of course it isn't, but the question is the LLM properly representing your brand in the system? So the number between 0 and 100 that comes out is trying to show you how accurately the LLM has represented your brand. And so those numbers combined then are saying your numbers are higher than your competitors. So currently you're better understood or more accurately understood than your competitors as of today's date. But those reports can then be repeated weekly, monthly, daily, whatever it may be, if you want to, and you can start to build up a picture over time, because the real value, I think, comes into the topic reports and the action plans in the topic reports, which tells you what to do to get better. And that's not in the brand overview report, but if you've got a topic report there, then, click on the action plan button, and that's where the magic happens. Sorry, listeners.
In fact, I do have a topic report here, and they do have action plans. I'm not going to, again, there's only so much I can go into looking at a client's reports and stuff.
Of course, yeah. But it's insightful. It should be insightful. The action plan report really goes into it's. Do you remember the SEO audit days where people, we used to do 100-page audits for clients, and we gave it to them and they never did anything. And 6 months later, we'd say, well, that's your fault. You didn't imply anything and stuff. That's more fool us, I suppose. But, the reports these days that we're generating are literally, when it comes to the recommendations in the report, it's 6 sentences. And it's like, do this, do this, do this, do this, and things will happen. And we find these really interesting because we're finding that the clients can read those recommendations and go, that's a good idea. And you just see the client's eyes light up most of the time. And so that's kind of the winning formula really for Waikay, and why it's not like the other AI tracking tools.
Yeah,
it's proactive.
To give listeners a just a really quick visual mental picture. My reports screen shows a number of topics that are either represented or underrepresented on my clients' pages, and gives me suggestions on, I don't want to say keywords exactly, because they're not keywords. They're more like ideas,
Topics.
entities, topics that we should write on more and, flesh out more information on. Assumably, this is what Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT is underfed in these areas.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I just did a demo with somebody on Adidas as an example. So, Adidas and Nike and Reebok seems to be quite a popular thing in my demos at the moment. I mean, I let the customer guide me. But, we looked at Adidas, and then we looked at the topic of marathons, with the theory being that, Adidas wants to improve their market share in the marathon market, and what the report comes out with in that particular case is, well, what you haven't got is you've got an app. That's great, but your app doesn't have anything tailored to marathon runners, or so that sort of thing, that kind of level of detail comes out. So talk about how you can use the app for marathon training, or talk about the carbon fiber. Apparently, they got some carbon fiber things that are good for marathon training or something like that. But they weren't really sort of talking about that, and so talking about the structure of having a section on marathon planning and a map, a diary of all the marathons in the world. These are things that will get a marathon runner buying into Adidas, not just once, but for a lifetime.
Now, this is interesting. By the way, for the North American ear, Adidas is Adidas.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. But the interesting thing I found here is Adidas is one of the largest footwear corporations in the world. They've done ample market research. They understand their audience. They understand how they're their customers and how their customers use their product. And they were missing this big section on their website that they could have been writing about, but hadn't. And they're missing a large and growing market. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I mean, in that example, we chose the active decision to say we want to push ourselves more into the marathon market. So a human in the loop decided marathons are where we're going to go next. They could have gone for tennis, or they could, but that was an active decision. At which point, we have to understand, or we have to look at as SEOs. Our job is to learn what's changed. I mean, it's all very well to say SEO is exactly the same with AI and stuff. But the truth of the matter is that when you think about the user journey, the user is no longer having to come to your website at all, particularly with Adidas. What they're doing is they're starting with their research and saying, I want to do some the London Marathon. What kind of trainer should I wear? That's the kind of thing they're asking the ChatGPT. They're not going to bother necessarily going to Nike or Reebok or whatever. What they're going to get back is here is a bunch of brands. These ones are good for this kind of thing. This one's good if you're a woman. This one's good if you're doing, if you're in New York or in a hot temperature or whatever it may be. And then you'll dive in and carry on asking the LLM. The LLM is going to go off and do the research on those websites. So now your content on your website has to communicate as much and soon even more to the LLM interpreting it, so that the LLM can take it back and compare it with the other competitors and digest that information for the user. At the end of their research, the user's not going to click on any of those sources. They're going to go and buy Adidas or Nike. That's all they're going to do. They're going to go straight from there to the shop and buy their shoes. So the idea of tracking and saying, I want to get more traffic from LLMs is absurd. you actually want to get less traffic from LLMs. You want to get more share of model. You want to get more mind share from the responses that the LLMs give. And in order to do that, you've got to make sure your content is well understood by the LLMs and covers everything that the competitor is that the user is going to want. That's it, really.
When
there ain't no traffic.
So you're suggesting that a lot of what was previously e-commerce is going to get converted in the shops again. People are going to go to the stores rather than purchase online. For certain name brands.
I mean, not necessarily, but so the example I've been citing on talks and things is this that this behind me there's this big gaming computer behind me now, and I've got that specifically because I wanted to buy a computer that was powerful enough to download an LLM or one or more local LLMs locally onto a machine, to run them on my own machine, so I wasn't hampered by GDPR and sending information off to third parties, potentially confidential information. I wanted to be able to analyze it locally, and I needed a computer that could do that. I have no idea about what kind of spec that has to be. Perfect question for asking ChatGPT or Gemini. So I asked them, what's the perfect spec for a machine that will do this? It comes out with, apparently I need a big GPU. I mean, okay, mine's bigger than yours. I needed all these bits and pieces. Comes out with an ideal spec. The next thing I do is use a different LLM to say, right, can you go and find the one on Amazon that's closest to that? Now I could have done that. What's the closest one on Walmart or whatever, or I could have chosen anywhere where I want to buy my PC, but I want the one that's got that particular spec. So I got the spec. I saw one on there. I then checked the spec in another LLM as a guardrail in case it had gone wrong, because I still didn't know it was going to be an expensive purchase. And then I bought the machine on Amazon. It was only after I bought the machine that I realized I had not gone to the website. I did not know the brand. The brand is called Ginger 6, by the way. I mean, not exactly HP. And the Amazon site didn't even have any reviews. No one had bought that spec, or no one had done a review on that spec because it was such an unusual spec. So of all the normal sort of EEAT kind of things, authority and trust and trusting reviews and all that, they'd all gone out the window. I'd assumed that had all been sorted by the LLMs, perhaps naively. Anyway, it runs the LLMs fine, so it was great, and it's done the job. But I didn't click on the website. I didn't know the brand. I bought entirely on the spec from the LLM, working out the underlying method spec that I needed. And I think that's just going to happen more and more. So yeah, you could still buy online, but the decision is made largely at the text in that prompt output. They're creating tables for us and stuff. That's very useful. Very useful.
I asked that question in that way because I think a lot of SEOs are really concerned about conversion metrics, about success metrics. What do our clients consider a success? And many of us represent online stores, stores that don't necessarily have brick and mortar equivalents. And so obviously there's a great worry. We can't drive traffic directly back to our client sites, and our clients probably don't need us so much anymore. You told an interesting, almost counterintuitive story, though, where a non-brand manufacturer managed to slip their information into the LLM stream, or at least into the generative response that you received, and you got their product. Having researched the specs and making sure that the output from one LLM checked out on one or two others.
Yeah, because what I did in that example is I was brand agnostic. I was looking for a spec. That's what I needed. And I needed something that was going to do some very unusual things for most people. Most people don't have to have, Llama on their computer. So that spec had now made a ideal thing that not very many people probably make. There's not very many people that will plug that GPU into that kind of motherboard and that kind of thing. There's probably, I'm sure NVIDIA will tell you plenty of people that do this. But I had now defined exactly what I wanted, and there were very few of these things in the world, because I'd thought about the product first, or the tech first, rather than the brand that it's associated with. And so, yeah, it slipped in. They got in there. And I think that's the win for small brands. If you properly define who you truly are, what makes you unique, and where you do stand out, then that's where you'll get your business. If customer service is a thing, if we're going to deliver it with a smile and a kiss, then fine. As long as people want it with a smile and a kiss, that's what you deliver. Be different, but be clear about that difference. And ChatGPT will get there.
I got a couple more questions. We're definitely pushing boundaries of time here, but what about publishers? The helpful content update starting in September 2023 just took the rug out from a lot of web businesses that were basically small to medium-sized publishers that had sprouted up in the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Moving forward in the LLM-based response world, is there a lot of hope for these folks if they can define themselves in their offerings?
It's hard for publishers. Let's not deny it. I think it's going to be a difficult sell for them. What I would be doing if I was in that world full time, I have, for example, so I've published a book. You can't get the book unless you buy it. Well, actually, you can. I've got it on a free PDF now. But if you're selling a book, you're still selling a book. You can turn your publishing into a hard copy. People still want hard copy books. So if you can turn your content into something that's behind a paywall, then I think that's where your win has to be. You've got to actually have content that's good enough for people to pay for, and so that could be courses. That could be books, stories that you have to buy the book for. It could be that chapter 1 is free, and then chapters 2 to 10 you've got to go and pay for. But I think they need to move towards a monetized model that's much more directly based around charging for the content. There is, of course, also this thing that Cloudflare are doing, which is starting a bidding platform, which I don't know if it's going to work, where you allow, as a publisher, that Cloudflare will block anything that any LLM that tries to take that look at that content, unless that LLM pays you 3 cents a page, or whatever your number is. So it'll be interesting to see whether that gets traction. I think that publishers should probably try it if they want to stay with the I want to put everything on my website and only humans that come to my website so I can get advertising revenue. They're going to have to use that kind of model. But I don't think that'll win the day. I think that's as much marketing hype as anything for Cloudflare. But I might be entirely wrong there. It may be a savior for publishers. For me, I would go for monetizing my content.
I'd imagine every other content delivery network out there also has to adopt Cloudflare's policies, and it would have to be a united front if that's going to succeed in the long run. And also, I'm worried about opting out of LLMs from my clients on Cloudflare. I'm terrified about that. I can't see many circumstances under which I would close them off. Unless specifically ordered to, which I would advise against.
If they're going to hire an SEO, then probably SEO 101 is make sure the crawlers can crawl with the content.
as much as technically possible. Absolutely. Okay, a couple more questions I kind of wanted to get at early, but the conversations conversations with you always take fun trails. You have a front row seat in, I guess, the efficacy of LLMs and how they understand content and understand the web. How hallucinations is probably the greatest concern about LLM output. How often do they hallucinate?
It's got a lot better in the last 6 months. So when we launched Waikay back in March, there was hallucinations left, right, and center, and I'm definitely seeing less of them now. Maybe I'm not looking so much. I know that the product works and stuff, but I think they have got better. But there's a real tendency for it depends on what is being asked. When we're looking at it from a brand lens, but I think they still will make fundamental errors when you start to ask sort of generic questions. But they are improving. But in a brand sense, the real problem is when you're using generic names in your brand. So I think Walmart is much safer than DIY.com. So DIY.com is a generic, DIY being a generic term. If your brand is DIY, then that becomes a challenge. So I think so Majestic, for example, has a challenge because Majestic as a word can be related to theaters, it can be related to restaurants, it can be related to the search engine. So there's much more likelihood for an LLM to go wrong. What I think has happened over the last 6 months is that because they're all really using RAG now and sort of search lookups, they're honing in and less likely to get something wrong because they're using a search engine to back up the results. But that's a failing in itself of an LLM, isn't it? If it needs a search engine, an old school search engine to correct itself, then or to get up to date information, then that's a challenge. But they're consistently working and improving. The hallucinations are getting less. They still have trouble telling you how many bees are in Babbage or something.
In the next week or two, we're going to start encountering stories about the burst of the AI bubble. Definite fears from investors and from businesses and consumers that this
which is a pity because no one actually gave me any money. So but then again, yeah.
Is there an AI bubble? AI is being added to everything, often more as a marketing ploy than an actual useful feature. Is there a bubble, and is that bubble going to burst? And does that worry you?
Yes, there is a bubble. Yes, it will burst, but it's not something that we haven't seen before, especially you and me. Going back to the internet bubble in its early days, I remember. I don't know if you remember boo.com, BOO.com.
The fashion.
And for me, in the UK anyway, when boo.com went bankrupt, that was the sign of the bubble bursting. So they were a fashion brand, and they were relatively high tech in that they were using a Flash website. Obviously, a disaster for SEO, but at the time, but when they went bust, a lot of things just went bust at pretty much the same time because they were building out all of these things and not actually looking at the bottom line of profit. What I think was interesting about the .com bubble when it burst, I was making a living at the time running murder mystery evenings online, so I was basically selling my own murder mysteries. So talking about publishers and content, I was selling my content back then. You couldn't get my murder mystery unless you paid $30 for the murder mystery. So so when it went bust, when the bubble went bust, it didn't stop the internet, did it? That carried on going fine. I hadn't borrowed lots of money. My business carried on fine. It didn't affect me because I was already profitable, and I had a positive cash flow. What will happen is that there will be people that have built technologies based on some of the LLMs that will not succeed. Presumably, you can't have all of those different LLM systems succeeding. and some will fail. And as a knock-on effect, some of those technologies will fail. But it's not very difficult for those technologies to move over to a different LLM provider. The API system is so much more advanced than it was before that we can just swap out DeepSeek for Llama 3.2 or whatever it may be. So I think that the bubble will burst. I think that for most of us, we'll just move on to a different LLM, and eventually, like Google, one will win that battle. I'm hoping that it takes a while for one to win the battle, because it was so much more fun back in 2000 when we were doing SEO for Lycos and AltaVista and InfoSeek and all these other different pieces and all these different tools. But we've decided in Waikay to just track 5 models instead of 50 models, because we think there's going to be such a fallout very quickly that tracking 50 models, we'll end up having to pay for API calls to 50 models. That's just wasted money. So we're just going with the biggies.
Okay, so we got to get out of here. I've kept you up for almost an hour in real time, 45 minutes in interview time.
Okay.
How do people engage with Waikay? Is there an introductory offer for them? And
there is. There's a free. They can try for free. So it's a bit hard to find on the homepage of the website. But if you go to Waikay, so Waikay is WAIKAY. What AI knows about you. .io/free, and you can sign up for a free account there. That'll give you 3 credits, which will give you enough to build a brand report, a topic report, and an action plan, and C1 prompt. So it gets you off the ground and running. You'll be able to see the product and decide whether you want to run with it. But the paid plans right now, we still have an early adopter pricing on there. So on the homepage, you can see a pricing that's $20, which will give you enough to run your website. A reasonably, a small person's brand would work fine on $20 a month, which is a fraction of what the competitors are charging. Most of the competitors are coming in. Well, most of them are coming in $199 upwards, really. But so getting in at $20 is great. You may find as you use it, you're going to have to buy more credits or move up. But we do have this policy of making it easy for small consultants, smaller businesses to use all of the features and just pay as you go. So the $20 may not be the last thing you do, but at least you can just buy credits instead of upping your plan.
I got one last question. AIs tend to work on credits. Is the monthly subscription plan over? Like in the long run, like for people thinking of building tools in the future, is monthly subscription over, and is things going to be built on credits in the future?
I don't know. I mean, we definitely went different with Waikay than we did with InLinks. I mean, one of the reasons we broke into a completely different product is because the pricing wasn't going to work. We had to charge on credits. And InLinks is based on how many pages you put in the system. So it just made more sense to have one small subscription, and then yes, you can have larger subscriptions and add-ons and things. So basically, after that, pay as you go. It seems like a logical model to go with. And it depends where you are in the world. I think a larger organization would prefer to have just give me one price and I know where I am with it, and it's it's happening every month or whatever, or pay a year in advance or whatever it's going to be. I think that as people get more sensitive to money, and I think they are at the moment, then this ability to go up and go down based on how much customers you've got, that month, or how much demand you've got for it that month, I think that's fair and reasonable. And the SaaS model tried to get people out of that, but it's going to come back to it. Yeah, eventually everything does get productized. So
See, this is one of the neat things about talking to you. Tangents happen and they're fun.
I'm so sorry. I should
No, that's my fault. I asked you the question, but I asked you the question, but you sort of put that signpost up there, and it was just too tempting not to take.
You're going to have to edit this right down.
Again, that's a function of studio. Dixon Jones, CEO of Waikay. Are you still CEO of InLinks as well?
Yes, yeah. Same limited organization. I should probably, if it can grow a little bit, I should probably make sure that we got a head of each department and start to do that. But, you know, if we can just get your customers to all of your listeners to come and buy $20 each, then, you know, maybe we can get there.
Well, everybody do Dixon a favor. Help him departmentalize his companies.
That'd be great.
Jump in right now, waykay.io. Dixon Jones, thank you so much for your time today on Webcology.
Jim, thanks.